What happens when a simple rescue mission on an alien planet uncovers a secret that could change the fate of humanity's war against the Koroth Empire? You won't believe how one prisoner's execution transforms into a battle for the galaxy's future, leaving Earth's greatest strategist facing choices no one could have predicted. The crimson sun of Zortal cast long shadows across the execution yard as Captain James Cartwright strode through the heavy iron gates. His boots echoed against the ancient stone pavement, each step carrying the weight of a decision that could end his military career. Before him stood a peculiar gathering. Armored guards formed a circle around a slender figure with shimmering silver skin, her hands bound by energy cuffs that pulsed with violet light. Elida Zar, the last known member of the ancient strategist race, condemned for crimes she claimed were fabricated. James's tactical visor displayed vital statistics about the prisoner. Heart rate elevated but steady, respiration controlled despite the dire circumstances. Most striking were her eyes, deep pools of liquid amethyst that seemed to pierce through time itself. As he approached, the crowd murmured in astonishment at the sight of a human officer interfering with local justice. The air crackled with tension, and James felt the familiar weight of his sidearm, knowing this mission would require more than weapons to succeed. "Stand down," barked Commander Forlack, his reptilian features contorted in anger. "This is a matter of planetary security." But James had seen the classified files. Elida's people possessed knowledge of strategic warfare that could turn the tide in humanity's desperate struggle against the expanding Koroth Empire. He took another step forward, his voice cutting through the charged atmosphere like a blade. "By intergalactic treaty, Earth forces have jurisdiction over prisoners of war." The words hung in the air, a gamble that might cost him everything. "We've only just begun this story, but trust me, it's going to get even more intense. Stay tuned to find out what happens when our hero faces an even greater injustice." Elida's crystalline gaze locked onto James's determined expression as the assembled spectators held their collective breath. The execution platform loomed behind them, its ominous machinery humming with lethal anticipation. James's mind raced through tactical scenarios, calculating angles and possible escape routes while maintaining his outward composure. The local authorities shifted uneasily, their weapons trained on the unfolding drama, unwilling to fire but equally unwilling to back down. "This is madness," hissed Forlack, scales rippling with agitation. "She's scheduled for termination in 15 minutes. James's fingers twitched toward his weapon, not in threat but in readiness. "Then you'd better start explaining why your evidence conveniently disappeared from the database," he countered, watching the subtle reactions play across the commander's face. The prisoner remained eerily calm, her breathing measured and precise, betraying years of discipline and training in maintaining composure under pressure. Time seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously as James activated his personal shield generator. The soft hum of the protective barrier drew gasps from the crowd, a clear violation of local protocols but necessary for what he planned next. Elida tilted her head slightly, acknowledging his move with barely perceptible approval. Their unspoken alliance was forming faster than either had anticipated, forged in the crucible of shared danger and mutual understanding of the stakes involved. "We're reaching the breaking point. What's about to happen will change everything. You can't afford to miss the resolution of this story." The first bolt of plasma struck James's shield with a deafening crack, sending shockwaves through the execution yard. Without hesitation, he dove into a tactical role, coming up between Elida and the firing line. The prisoner's shackles sparked erratically as she funneled energy through her own latent abilities, creating momentary gaps in the suppression field. James seized the opportunity, deploying countermeasures that created cascading interference patterns across the courtyard's security systems. Forlack's forces advanced methodically, their movements constrained by protocol and the unexpected complexity of the situation. James's combat training kicked in as he calculated optimal engagement zones, using the environment to his advantage. Ancient pillars provided cover while creating natural choke points, forcing their opponents to approach from predictable angles. Elita's presence proved invaluable as she mentally mapped enemy positions, communicating through subtle gestures that only James could interpret. The skirmish evolved into a deadly dance of strategy and reflexes. James's enhanced reflexes allowed him to anticipate attacks, while Elita's innate understanding of spatial dynamics enabled them to maintain a mobile defensive perimeter. Each successful evasion brought them closer to the courtyard's maintenance tunnels, their only viable escape route. The air grew thick with discharged energy as they fought their way toward freedom, their synchronized movements becoming increasingly instinctive. Breaking through the maintenance hatch, James and Elita descended into Zortal's labyrinthine undercity, where bioluminescent fungi cast eerie green light across ancient stone corridors. The pursuit echoed above them, distant shouts and weapon fire reverberating through the tunnel system. Elita's movements became more fluid as they navigated deeper, her familiarity with these passages evident in the way she guided them through increasingly narrow passageways. James noted how she seemed to draw strength from the planet's core energies, her silvery skin beginning to glow faintly in response to the subterranean radiation. Their pursuers' advantage diminished with each level they descended, the dense crystalline formations interfering with both tracking technology and communication signals. James's tactical display flickered intermittently, forcing him to rely more heavily on traditional navigation skills. Elita demonstrated remarkable adaptability, seamlessly integrating her species' natural abilities with human tactical expertise. At one point, she pressed her palm against a crystalline wall, causing it to resonate with harmonic frequencies that temporarily disabled security drones patrolling the lower levels. The deeper they ventured, the more apparent it became that Elita possessed intimate knowledge of these forgotten passages. Her people had designed this network centuries ago, incorporating fail-safe mechanisms that responded to specific genetic markers. James watched in fascination as she activated ancient defense systems, sealing sections of the tunnel behind them while illuminating safe paths forward. The temperature dropped noticeably, and moisture condensed on the walls, creating treacherous footing that tested their endurance and coordination. Emerging into a hidden sanctuary deep within the planet's crust, James and Elita found themselves surrounded by holographic archives suspended in mid-air, their ethereal glow illuminating countless generations of strategic knowledge. The chamber pulsed with latent energy as Elita approached a central console, her fingertips brushing against crystalline interfaces that flared to life at her touch. James observed how her entire demeanor transformed, evolving from fugitive to custodian of an ancient legacy as streams of data flowed through her consciousness. What you see here represents millennia of conflict resolution, Elita explained, her voice resonating with newfound authority. My people didn't just fight wars. We understood them on a fundamental level. She manipulated complex algorithms that materialized as three-dimensional tactical matrices, demonstrating how seemingly random events often followed predictable patterns when viewed through the proper lens. James's military training struggled to comprehend the sophistication of these strategic models, which incorporated psychological, environmental, and temporal factors beyond conventional battlefield analysis. As they delved deeper into the archives, James began recognizing elements of Elita's physiology that suggested her race had been engineered for this very purpose. Neural pathways visibly enhanced during cognitive processes, ocular structures capable of processing multiple dimensions of information simultaneously. These biological adaptations represented evolutionary responses to their role as universal strategists. The realization hit him like a physical force. They weren't just dealing with advanced mathematics or superior intellect. They were witnessing the culmination of a species specifically designed to understand and influence the flow of galactic conflicts. The sanctuary's defenses activated with startling suddenness as Forlax's forces breached the outer perimeter. James watched in awe as Alita orchestrated a symphony of countermeasures, her mental commands translating into cascading waves of defensive protocols that rippled through the chamber. Ancient mechanisms whirred to life, crystalline barriers emerging from the floor in intricate patterns that deflected incoming fire while creating constantly shifting cover positions. The air vibrated with harmonic frequencies as she harmonized her species' technology with modern tactical systems. "You'll need to trust my instincts," Alita called out, her voice steady despite the chaos. "These defenses are calibrated to respond to specific threat patterns." She directed James to key positions where their combined abilities could maximize the sanctuary's automated systems. Together, they created overlapping fields of protection that forced their attackers into increasingly disadvantageous positions. James's military training meshed perfectly with Alita's innate understanding of spatial dynamics, allowing them to anticipate and counter every assault. The battle reached a critical phase when Forlax deployed experimental disruptor technology. The sanctuary's systems faltered momentarily, but Alita adapted instantly, rerouting power through secondary neural networks embedded in the chamber's architecture. Her silver skin glowed with concentrated energy as she physically absorbed and redistributed the attack's force, converting it into additional defensive capabilities. James marveled at her ability to maintain such precise control while under extreme duress, her movements becoming almost artistic in their efficiency and precision. As the immediate threat subsided, James and Alita found themselves standing amidst the ruins of their former adversary's equipment, the silence punctuated only by the gentle hum of reactivated systems. Through careful observation, James began noticing subtle changes in Alita's behavior moments when her attention would drift toward particular holographic displays, her fingers tracing invisible patterns in the air. These gestures seemed to unlock deeper layers of strategic knowledge, revealing connections between historical conflicts that spanned galaxies and centuries. "The patterns emerge when you stop looking for them," Alita explained, guiding James through a complex simulation that visualized the ebb and flow of galactic power struggles. True strategy isn't about winning battles. It's about understanding the underlying currents that drive civilizations to conflict. She manipulated variables representing economic pressures, cultural shifts, and technological advancements, demonstrating how these factors interacted in ways that predetermined outcomes long before any weapons were drawn. Their partnership evolved into something more profound as they worked through increasingly sophisticated analyses. James contributed his first-hand experience with modern warfare, while Alita provided the meta-perspective that came from her people's centuries-long study of conflict. Together, they identified weaknesses in the Korath Empire's expansion strategy that neither could have recognized alone. The archive systems adapted to their collaborative approach, generating new insights and potential solutions at an accelerating rate, each revelation building upon the last in an intricate web of strategic possibilities. Through the archive's vast repository of knowledge, James discovered that Alita's people had foreseen humanity's emergence as a galactic power centuries before Earth's first spaceflight. Holographic records revealed detailed observations of human civilization's development, documenting crucial turning points in history with unsettling accuracy. More disturbing were the predictions regarding Earth's inevitable confrontation with the Korath Empire, forecasts that aligned precisely with current events but originated thousands of years in the past. Alita guided James through simulations that demonstrated how minor interventions at key historical junctures had shaped humanity's progress. "Your species possesses a unique quality," she explained, manipulating projections that highlighted pivotal moments of human innovation and resilience, an inherent ability to adapt and overcome challenges that would destroy other civilizations. The revelations forced James to reconsider everything he knew about human history and their place in the galaxy, suggesting that humanity's rise might have been carefully cultivated rather than purely coincidental. As they delved deeper into these records, they uncovered evidence of covert operations spanning centuries, subtle influences that had steered humanity away from self-destruction while preparing them for their current role in galactic affairs. The implications were staggering, suggesting that the upcoming conflict with the Korath Empire represented not just a military challenge but a crucial test of humanity's readiness to join the interstellar community as equals. Each discovery added another layer of complexity to their mission, transforming what had started as a rescue operation into something far more significant. The archive's most restricted chamber revealed a devastating truth. The Korath Empire's military doctrine wasn't merely aggressive expansion, but a carefully orchestrated plan to eliminate all strategic competitors. Elita's people had documented the Empire's systematic eradication of other strategist species throughout history, preserving evidence that would otherwise have been lost forever. As James processed this information, he noticed Elita's physical reaction, her crystalline structure vibrating with increasing intensity as she accessed memories triggered by the overwhelming evidence. "We must warn Earth's leadership immediately," James urged, but Elita shook her head, her amethyst eyes reflecting deep sorrow. "The warning comes too late. The Korath already know about us. This entire facility has been compromised since the moment we entered." Her words sent a chill through James as he realized the full scope of the trap they'd walked into. Every defensive measure, every piece of strategic knowledge they'd uncovered, all of it had been meticulously documented by their enemies. Their situation grew more precarious as hidden surveillance systems activated, revealing that their every move had been monitored and analyzed. The sanctuary's ancient protections, once thought impenetrable, now appeared as sophisticated data collection mechanisms feeding directly to Korath intelligence networks. Elita's distress mounted as she recognized familiar patterns in the surveillance methods or techniques developed by her own people, now perverted for purposes of conquest and extermination. The realization that her ancestors' greatest achievements had been weaponized against their descendants weighed heavily on her silver shoulders. The sanctuary's final defense mechanism activated with catastrophic force as Elita channeled every ounce of her remaining energy into triggering the failsafe protocol. Crystalline structures erupted from the chamber walls, forming a massive containment sphere that sealed them off from their pursuers, while simultaneously initiating a complete data purge. James watched in awe as Elita's form became translucent, her physical body merging with the archive's core systems to protect humanity's future from falling into enemy hands. "I never imagined I'd meet someone who truly understood sacrifice," Elita whispered, her voice echoing through the chamber as her consciousness expanded to encompass the entire repository of strategic knowledge. "Take what you've learned and use it wisely." James reached out, his hand passing through her increasingly ephemeral form as the archive systems transferred their accumulated wisdom directly into his neural interface. The transfer process overwhelmed his senses, flooding his mind with centuries of strategic insight while simultaneously burning the knowledge into his very being to prevent extraction. As the containment sphere collapsed inward, James found himself ejected through an emergency tunnel, carrying the weight of two civilizations' hopes on his shoulders. The ground trembled violently behind him as the sanctuary imploded, ensuring that Elita's final act of defiance would deny the Korath Empire their ultimate victory. Emerging into Zortal's harsh sunlight, James understood that the true battle had only just begun. Armed with knowledge that could change the course of galactic history, he now faced the monumental task of preparing humanity for the coming storm. The story concludes with James Cartwright standing at a crossroads of destiny, carrying the burden of ancient wisdom and the memory of ultimate sacrifice. Don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling adventures across the stars. The transition from carrying theoretical knowledge to implementing strategic mastery proved more challenging than James anticipated. As he navigated Zortal's surface, each step felt heavier with the weight of Alita's sacrifice and the responsibility she'd entrusted him with. The tactical data flooding his neural pathways demanded constant mental processing, forcing him to adapt his human cognitive framework to accommodate alien strategic concepts. Simple decisions became complex calculations, while apparent solutions revealed hidden layers of consequence that only moments before would have remained invisible. Commander Forlak's forces maintained their pursuit, though now with a noticeable shift in tactics patterns that James recognized as Korath influence rather than local military doctrine. This realization brought a surge of clarity. The enemy had already begun implementing their next phase of operation. Through Alita's transferred knowledge, James identified subtle markers in their movements that signaled an impending larger-scale assault, not just on Zortal, but across multiple human border colonies simultaneously. The pieces of a galactic chessboard began falling into place within his mind's eye. His physical journey through Zortal's rugged terrain transformed into a mental odyssey through centuries of conflict resolution strategies. Each environmental challenge presented opportunities to test newly acquired insights against practical battlefield conditions. When rockslides threatened to trap him in narrow canyons, he applied hybrid defensive maneuvers combining human adaptability with Zarian spatial awareness. These real-world applications solidified his understanding, allowing him to process the overwhelming influx of information more efficiently with each passing hour. Reaching the extraction point, James encountered unexpected resistance from his own chain of command. Lieutenant Commander Harris's face hardened on the secure communication channel as James transmitted his initial report. "You've compromised an entire operation for one alien prisoner?" Harris's voice carried the weight of military bureaucracy, unable to comprehend the magnitude of what James had discovered. The transmission lag created moments of tension where James could practically hear the gears turning in Harris's mind, calculating political fallout rather than strategic implications. James's newfound understanding allowed him to navigate this bureaucratic minefield with precision. He presented his findings through carefully chosen analogies that bridged human military doctrine with Zarian strategic principles. "Think of it as upgrading from two-dimensional to four-dimensional warfare," he explained, watching Harris's expression shift from skepticism to cautious interest. The lieutenant commander's tactical training responded instinctively to concepts framed in familiar terms, even as his administrative instincts recoiled at the unprecedented nature of the revelations. Their dialogue evolved into a delicate dance of information exchange, with James strategically revealing just enough to establish credibility without compromising operational security. He demonstrated predictive capabilities that seemed almost supernatural, accurately anticipating Harris's questions and concerns before they were voiced. This synchronization of thought patterns, made possible by Alita's knowledge transfer, created a bridge between traditional military thinking and revolutionary strategic insight. Through this careful calibration of disclosure, James secured crucial support while maintaining control over the full scope of his mission's significance. The return to Earth's Strategic Command Center transformed into a crucible of adaptation as James integrated ancient Zarian methodologies with modern human military infrastructure. Each briefing room became a testing ground where timeless strategic principles collided with contemporary technological capabilities. His neural interface processed these interactions at quantum speeds, generating innovative approaches to long-standing tactical challenges. During high-level strategy sessions, James found himself translating Alita's teachings into practical applications that astonished even seasoned commanders, from predicting enemy movements 3 steps ahead to identifying vulnerabilities in seemingly impenetrable defenses. The transformation extended beyond mere tactical proficiency. James's presence began influencing the command structure itself, as officers unconsciously adopted elements of Zarian strategic thinking. Meetings that once devolved into hierarchical posturing evolved into collaborative problem-solving sessions where rank mattered less than contribution to the collective understanding. Ancient concepts of harmonic warfare, achieving maximum effect with minimal force through perfect timing and positioning, manifested in everything from fleet deployments to diplomatic negotiations. Most remarkable was how seamlessly these advanced strategies meshed with human ingenuity. Soldiers on the front lines reported intuitive responses to situations they'd never encountered before, their instincts guided by principles they couldn't consciously articulate but executed with precision. This organic integration suggested that Elita's final gift had triggered something fundamental in human military evolution, unlocking latent potential that had always existed but never been properly cultivated until now. As the first wave of Korath attacks materialized across human territories, James stood at the nexus of humanity's defense network, directing operations through a lens that combined mortal intuition with immortal wisdom. The enemy's assaults followed patterns that, to untrained eyes, appeared chaotic and unpredictable. Yet through Elita's teachings, James recognized the underlying symphony of aggression, each movement building upon previous engagements to create a crescendo of overwhelming force. His commands flowed with mathematical precision, redirecting resources and deploying countermeasures that transformed apparent chaos into orchestrated response. The battles unfolded across multiple theaters simultaneously, each engagement representing a piece of a larger puzzle that only James could see clearly. Fleets maneuvered according to choreography that defied conventional military doctrine yet achieved results bordering on miraculous. Ground forces executed maneuvers that seemed suicidal until viewed through the prism of four-dimensional strategy, where apparent retreats became devastating traps and seemingly random skirmishes formed intricate nets of containment. Communication channels buzzed with reports of impossible victories and inexplicable Korath withdrawals, all falling perfectly into place within James's master plan. At the heart of this maelstrom, James maintained absolute focus, his consciousness operating on multiple temporal planes simultaneously. He experienced battles not just as they happened, but as they would unfold minutes, hours, even days into the future. This expanded perception allowed him to make decisions that seemed prescient to observers but were, in reality, calculated responses to inevitable developments. The Korath Empire, renowned for its strategic superiority, found itself outmaneuvered at every turn by an opponent who understood their methodology better than they did themselves. In the aftermath of humanity's improbable victory, James Cartwright stood alone atop Earth's strategic command center, gazing at stars that now seemed both closer and more distant than ever before. The weight of Elita's sacrifice pressed heavily against his shoulders, each successful battle a reminder of the price paid for victory. Her final words echoed in his mind, not as a burden but as a guiding principle. True strategy wasn't about winning wars but preventing them through understanding. The galaxy had changed fundamentally, not because humanity had defeated an enemy but because they'd learned to think like those who had once shaped civilizations. Human military doctrine underwent a quiet revolution, incorporating elements of Zarian philosophy without ever fully understanding their origin. Officers developed instincts they couldn't explain, executing maneuvers that felt natural despite their complexity. Across human space, conflicts began resolving themselves through harmonious solutions rather than violent confrontations, a testament to the enduring influence of a strategist who had given everything to preserve peace. James watched this transformation unfold with bittersweet satisfaction, knowing that Elita's legacy lived on in ways far more profound than any official record could capture. The stars twinkled mockingly above, reminding him that while one war had ended, the universe maintained its endless cycle of conflict and resolution. Yet something fundamental had shifted. Humanity now possessed the ability to see beyond immediate battles, to understand the currents that drove civilizations to clash or cooperate. As James turned back toward the command center, He carried with him not just the memory of sacrifice, but the responsibility to ensure that such sacrifices would never again be necessary. The real victory lay not in defeating the Koroth Empire, but in proving that even in a universe dominated by conflict, understanding could triumph over destruction. Thank you for experiencing this interstellar journey with us. Remember to subscribe for more thrilling adventures that explore the depths of courage, sacrifice, and the eternal quest for peace among the stars.